the Executor-class Super Star Destroyer was one of the most heavily armed warships ever constructed, designed to serve as both a command vessel and an overwhelming force on the battlefield. Its firepower was distributed across thousands of weapons emplacements, ensuring comprehensive coverage in engagements ranging from fleet battles to planetary sieges. The armament was meticulously arranged to provide the vessel with superior firepower in all combat scenarios, combining long-range bombardment capabilities with precise anti-starfighter defenses and powerful ion weaponry designed to disable enemy warships. At the core of the Executor's offensive capabilities were its turbo lasers, numbering over 5,000 in total. These weapons were arranged across the dorsal and ventral hull surfaces, as well as along the port and starboard flanks, ensuring an omnidirectional field of fire. The heaviest of these were the 750 twin heavy turbo laser batteries, which formed the ship's primary anti-capital ship arsenal. These batteries were designed to unleash devastating volleys of energy, capable of breaching the shields of Mon Calamari cruisers and other heavily armored vessels with sustained fire. The immense power generated by each battery required a dedicated reactor feed, with reinforced power conduits running through the ship's superstructure to ensure a stable energy supply even under prolonged combat conditions. In addition to its heavy turbo lasers, the Executor was equipped with 1,000 turret-mounted twin light turbo laser batteries, which provided a secondary layer of firepower optimized for targeting smaller capital ships and fast-moving corvettes. These lighter batteries were mounted on independently rotating turrets, allowing for rapid target acquisition and precise firing solutions. Their rate of fire was significantly higher than that of the heavy turbo lasers, making them particularly effective in situations where sustained damage output was required to overwhelm enemy shielding. To complement its turbo lasers, the Executor carried 100 twin battleship ion cannons, strategically placed along the hull to maximize their effectiveness against enemy warships. Unlike turbo lasers, which relied on raw destructive power, ion cannons fired concentrated ionized particles designed to disrupt electrical systems, disable shield generators, and render ships defenseless. These weapons were frequently used in fleet engagements to cripple enemy vessels before they could escape, allowing the Executor's turbo lasers to finish the kill. The targeting systems for the ion cannons were integrated with the ship's primary fire control network, ensuring coordinated attacks that could exploit weaknesses in an opponent's defenses. For specialized engagements, the Executor was outfitted with 125 assault concussion missile launchers, capable of delivering high-yield warheads with pinpoint accuracy. These launchers were particularly useful for engaging heavily shielded targets, as concussion missiles were designed to transfer kinetic and explosive energy through energy barriers, dealing direct damage to enemy hulls. The missiles employed advanced guidance systems, allowing them to adjust their trajectory mid-flight to counter evasive maneuvers. Each launcher was capable of carrying a magazine of 30 missiles before requiring reloading, and resupply systems were integrated into the ship's vast logistical network to ensure a steady ammunition supply during prolonged engagements. Given its sheer size and role as a command vessel, the Executor required extensive point defense systems to protect against enemy starfighters and fast-moving assault craft. To this end, it was armed with 250 turret-mounted quad laser cannons, positioned to cover vulnerable sections of the hull. These weapons were highly effective against smaller targets, boasting a high rate of fire and rapid turret rotation speeds. Each turret was controlled by an independent targeting system, allowing them to track and engage multiple targets simultaneously. In combination with the ship's onboard targeting computers and sensor arrays, the quad laser cannons formed a formidable defensive network capable of repelling even the most coordinated starfighter assaults. The effectiveness of the Executor's weaponry was enhanced by its advanced fire control and targeting systems, which coordinated thousands of individual turrets and batteries into a cohesive and efficient combat network. The ship's main fire control center was located deep within its heavily shielded command structure, where a dedicated team of gunnery officers managed targeting solutions and firing patterns. Data from the ship's long-range sensors, tracking radars, and tactical analysis systems were continuously fed into the fire control network, ensuring optimal firing solutions against enemy vessels. The Executor's weapons targeting software utilized predictive algorithms capable of compensating for enemy maneuvers, allowing turbo lasers and missile launchers to adjust their aim in real time. To maintain its devastating rate of fire, the Executor relied on a complex and highly efficient cooling system, designed to dissipate the immense heat generated by continuous turbo laser discharges. Each weapon system was integrated with a dedicated cooling loop, using a combination of cryogenic gas circulation and heat sink arrays to prevent overheating. For the heaviest turbo laser batteries, additional cooling vents were embedded into the hull, allowing excess thermal energy to be expelled into space. In emergency situations, power to overheating weapons could be rerouted to secondary batteries, ensuring uninterrupted combat efficiency. The power demands of such an extensive arsenal were met by a series of high-output reactor cores located within the ship's reinforced engineering section. These reactors provided direct energy feeds to all major weapon systems, with redundancy protocols in place to prevent localized damage from crippling the ship's offensive capabilities. Should a section of the ship's power grid be compromised, backup generators and energy redistribution conduits ensured that weapons remained operational. The Executor's reactors were among the most powerful ever installed on a warship of its class, allowing it to maintain sustained firepower for extended engagements without significant loss of combat effectiveness. Over the course of its service, the Executor underwent various modifications to enhance its already formidable armament. Some configurations included the installation of experimental hypervelocity cannons designed to deliver kinetic projectiles at relativistic speeds for planetary bombardment and long-range engagements. Other enhancements focused on improving the ship's shield-piercing capabilities, with certain turbo laser batteries upgraded to specialized models capable of generating frequency-modulated energy blasts, designed to bypass standard energy defenses. These modifications were tailored to counter specific threats faced by the Empire, ensuring that the Executor remained at the cutting edge of military technology. The distribution of the Executor's weaponry was carefully planned to provide comprehensive battlefield control. Its forward batteries were designed for overwhelming frontal assaults, delivering concentrated firepower to breach enemy formations. Its lateral and dorsal batteries allowed for broadside engagements, ensuring that it could engage multiple opponents simultaneously without compromising firepower. The ship's ventral weapons, though slightly fewer in number, provided crucial coverage against smaller vessels attempting to exploit blind spots beneath the hull. The Executor's role as a fleet command ship meant that its weapons systems were not only a means of destruction, but also an integral part of fleet-wide battle coordination. By integrating its fire control systems with those of accompanying Star Destroyers, the Executor could direct large-scale fleet engagements with unparalleled precision. Targeting data could be relayed to Allied ships, allowing them to focus fire on weakened enemy positions, while the Executor provided heavy support. This coordination made the Executor the linchpin of any Imperial battle formation, capable of dictating the course of engagements through superior firepower and strategic positioning. In addition to its primary armaments, the Executor carried an extensive complement of starfighters, shuttles, and ground assault vehicles, further enhancing its operational versatility. These auxiliary forces provided additional firepower and defensive capabilities, allowing the ship to respond to a wide range of tactical scenarios. TIE fighter squadrons patrolled its airspace, intercepting incoming threats before they could engage the main vessel. Assault shuttles and dropships enabled planetary invasions, ensuring that the Executor could serve as a mobile command center for large-scale military operations. The sheer scale of the Executor's weaponry made it a force unlike any other, capable of laying waste to entire fleets or reducing planetary defenses to rubble. Its firepower was not only a demonstration of Imperial might, but a tactical advantage that ensured dominance on the battlefield. Whether engaged in fleet warfare, planetary sieges, or strategic blockades, the Executor's unparalleled armament solidified its place as the most powerful warship of its time. The Executor-class Super Star Destroyer was equipped with an array of Executor 50.X engines, a set of 13 massive propulsion units that provided the necessary thrust for the vessel's movement across both real space and atmosphere. These engines were among the most powerful ever installed on a capital ship, designed to propel the immense structure of the Executor with both efficiency and reliability. Each Executor 50X engine was an advanced ion drive system, utilizing powerful ionized particle acceleration to generate thrust. These engines were arranged in a configuration of 13, 11 primary engines and 2 auxiliary sublight drives, ensuring optimal energy distribution and redundancy in case of damage. The sheer size and complexity of the propulsion system required a dedicated engineering team responsible for maintaining engine stability, adjusting thrust output, and managing heat dissipation. Despite its overwhelming size, the Executor class was capable of reaching impressive sublight speeds relative to its mass. In atmospheric conditions, it could achieve a maximum velocity of 100 kilometers per hour, which, while appearing slow compared to smaller ships, was significant given its colossal frame. In the vacuum of space, the ship's acceleration was vastly greater, with the Executor capable of moving at speeds comparable to Imperial-class Star Destroyers, despite being over 10 times their size. Acceleration was achieved through a carefully controlled power distribution system that ensured a gradual buildup of speed. Due to its massive inertia, the Executor could not engage in sudden bursts of movement like smaller warships. Instead, its engines were designed to provide a steady increase in velocity, allowing it to close the distance with enemy fleets or reposition itself in combat without destabilizing internal systems. Full acceleration could take several minutes to achieve, requiring precise coordination between engineering teams and navigational officers. Maneuverability was a significant challenge for a ship of this scale. While the Executor class was never designed for rapid turns or evasive maneuvers, its extensive network of maneuvering thrusters allowed it to make controlled adjustments to its trajectory. These thrusters, strategically placed along the superstructure, provided fine-tuned directional control, enabling the vessel to reorient itself during battle or align with fleet formations. However, sharp turns and sudden course corrections were impractical due to the ship's enormous mass. Strategic positioning and preemptive course adjustments were necessary to ensure that the Executor maintained optimal battlefield positioning. Energy distribution within the propulsion system was a critical factor in maintaining operational efficiency. The ship's reactors, which also powered its vast array of weaponry and shielding, had to allocate a significant portion of their output to the engines. This distribution was managed by an intricate network of power regulators, ensuring that the engines received sufficient energy without compromising the performance of other vital systems. In emergency situations, power from non-essential subsystems could be rerouted to the engines, allowing for temporary boosts in speed or acceleration. However, such maneuvers placed immense strain on the ship's power grid and could not be sustained for long durations. Cooling was another essential aspect of engine operation. The Executor 50X engines generated enormous amounts of heat, requiring a sophisticated cooling system to prevent overheating and structural damage. Liquid coolant loops combined with radiation dispersal arrays work to regulate engine temperature, channeling excess heat away from critical components. Massive heat sinks, embedded within the engine housing, absorbed thermal energy, gradually releasing it into space through venting systems. In prolonged engagements, thermal buildup could become a concern, necessitating temporary reductions in engine output to allow cooling cycles to stabilize temperatures. Maintenance of the Executor's engines was a constant and demanding task. A dedicated crew of thousands was assigned to engine upkeep, performing routine diagnostics, component replacements, and structural integrity checks. Given the ship's extensive operational deployments, wear and tear on the engines were inevitable, requiring regular servicing to ensure peak efficiency. Hyperdrive maintenance was particularly crucial, as any misalignment in the hyperdrive motivators could result in catastrophic failures during faster-than-light travel. Specialized engineering teams were stationed across multiple engine control rooms, each responsible for overseeing specific segments of the propulsion system. The Executor class's propulsion system was designed to balance power, endurance, and reliability. While not built for speed or agility in the traditional sense, its engines provided it with the necessary thrust to maintain dominance in both fleet engagements and strategic maneuvers. The combination of powerful ion drives, efficient energy distribution, and advanced cooling systems ensured that the Executor remained a formidable force on the battlefield, capable of outlasting and overpowering any opposition through sheer endurance and firepower. The Executor-class Super Star Destroyer was equipped with an advanced primary Class 1 hyperdrive, granting it an exceptional hyperspace travel speed despite its immense size. This primary hyperdrive allowed the Executor to traverse vast interstellar distances in a matter of hours or days, a crucial feature for a command ship designed to oversee large-scale fleet movements and conduct strategic operations across the galaxy. To ensure continued mobility in the event of primary system failure, the Executor was also fitted with a Class 10 backup hyperdrive, which, while considerably slower, served as a safeguard against mechanical failures or battle damage that might render the main hyperdrive inoperative. This redundancy reflected the vessel's role as a flagship, ensuring that it could never be easily stranded or disabled, even in the direst circumstances. The hyperdrive system of the Executor operated on the well-established principles of hyperspace travel, utilizing advanced hyperdrive motivators to generate the necessary energy field that would allow the ship to transition from real space into the alternate dimension of hyperspace. Within hyperspace, the ship effectively bypassed the limitations of real space physics, moving at speeds that would be impossible under normal conditions. This system required precise calculations from an advanced Navy computer, which accounted for planetary gravity wells, black holes, and other spatial anomalies that could disrupt a hyperspace jump. Due to the Executor's sheer size, the gravitational distortions created by its own mass had to be factored into every jump, necessitating a far more complex navigational process than that required by smaller vessels. Powering the Executor's hyperdrive was a high-output hypermatter reactor, an enormous energy source that supplied the ship with the raw power necessary for hyperspace travel. Unlike starfighters or smaller warships that utilized compact, self-contained hyperdrive systems, the Executor required a dedicated network of power conduits and reactor interfaces to sustain its hyperdrive motivators. The energy draw was so immense that activating the hyperdrive momentarily affected local electromagnetic fields, sometimes causing minor power fluctuations in nearby vessels traveling in formation with the Executor. Managing this energy distribution was a critical task, as failure to properly regulate power flow could result in dangerous instabilities within the hyperdrive motivator matrix. Due to its enormous energy demands, the hyperdrive's operation was intricately linked to the overall power distribution network of the ship. During hyperspace travel, non-essential systems were placed in low-power standby mode to ensure that the hyperdrive received uninterrupted energy. Weapon systems, including the extensive turbo laser batteries and ion cannons, were temporarily depowered, and secondary sensor arrays were recalibrated to hyperspace scanning frequencies rather than real space tracking. Only vital shipboard functions, such as life support, shielding, and communications, remained fully operational during hyperspace jumps. This careful balance of power distribution was maintained by automated energy regulators, overseen by engineering crews stationed throughout the ship. Maintaining the Executor's hyperdrive system was a task of enormous complexity, requiring a dedicated team of engineers, technicians, and hyperspace specialists to monitor its various components. Due to the ship's size, even minor misalignments in the hyperdrive motivators could lead to navigational errors or mechanical failures. Engineers conducted continuous diagnostic scans and calibration checks, ensuring that the hyperdrive's magnetic field stabilizers and inertial dampeners remained in peak working order. Given the importance of the Executor as a command ship, emergency repair protocols were in place to allow the ship to conduct on-the-fly hyperdrive maintenance if necessary. To facilitate this, multiple hyperdrive control stations were located throughout the vessel, allowing engineering teams to isolate and reroute power in the event of system malfunctions. The hyperdrive was not merely a means of transportation, it was a crucial component of the Executor's strategic function within the Galactic Empire's military doctrine. Unlike smaller vessels such as reconnaissance starfighters that relied on hyperdrive technology for quick scouting missions, the Executor's hyperdrive was integral to its ability to command entire fleets. The ship's ability to traverse the galaxy with speed and efficiency made it the centerpiece of Imperial fleet operations, allowing Death Squadron and other major formations to deploy rapidly to key sectors. By utilizing its advanced hyperdrive system, the Executor could arrive at the site of a battle or planetary assault with little warning, instantly shifting the balance of power in favor of the Empire. The ability to conduct rapid strategic redeployments was one of the Executor's greatest advantages. Unlike ground-based command centers or stationary battle stations, which required time to mobilize and coordinate forces, the Executor could relocate across the galaxy in mere hours, bringing an overwhelming show of force to any contested region. This capability allowed it to enforce Imperial rule across vast distances, responding swiftly to uprisings, engaging rebel fleets before they could fully organize, and acting as a deterrent against planetary resistance. Its mere presence in a system was often enough to crush morale, as few enemy forces could hope to stand against the combined firepower and fleet coordination capabilities that the Super Star Destroyer provided. The hyperdrive's importance extended beyond individual battles, shaping the very nature of intergalactic warfare. The ability to transport fleets across the stars was the defining feature of military strategy in the Galactic Civil War, enabling the Empire to control distant territories, deploy reinforcements in real time, and pursue enemies across multiple systems. Without hyperdrive technology, large-scale space warfare would be impossible, confined to the limitations of real space travel, which would take years or even decades to cross the same distances. The Executor, with its unparalleled mobility for a ship of its size, embodied this principle, serving as a direct extension of Imperial authority across the vast reaches of the galaxy. Unlike conventional capital ships that operated within the constraints of known hyperlanes, the Executor's advanced navigational systems allowed it to chart custom hyperspace routes, bypassing traditional shipping lanes and approaching enemy positions from unexpected vectors. This capability made it an invaluable tool for executing surprise assaults, deep space blockades, and rapid response maneuvers. Rebel forces could never be certain where or when an Executor-class vessel might emerge, as its hyperspace range and speed rendered traditional strategic calculations ineffective. The mere possibility of its sudden arrival forced enemy fleets to remain in a state of constant readiness, draining their resources and limiting their ability to commit to prolonged engagements. To ensure its operational superiority, the Executor was also integrated into Imperial fleet coordination protocols, allowing it to serve as a hyperspace beacon for other vessels within its formation. Smaller Star Destroyers and support craft would often synchronize their jump calculations with the Executors, allowing for coordinated fleet movements that maximize tactical efficiency. Because the ship's hyperdrive generated a powerful gravitational footprint, escort ships were required to maintain a precise hyperspace entry vector, ensuring that their own energy fields did not interfere with the Executor's navigational stability. This synchronization allowed entire task forces and invasion fleets to arrive at a target system in perfect formation, preventing the chaos of staggered reinforcements or disorganized deployments. Ultimately, the Executor's hyperdrive was more than just a technological marvel. It was the foundation of its strategic dominance. By allowing the ship to traverse the vast distances of the galaxy with unparalleled speed and precision, it ensured that no enemy could escape the reach of the Empire. Whether leading massive fleet engagements, spearheading planetary invasions, or acting as an unstoppable symbol of Imperial power, the Executor's ability to move seamlessly through hyperspace cemented its role as one of the most formidable warships ever constructed. The Executor-class Super Star Destroyer was an unparalleled marvel of engineering, an immense behemoth of destruction and control that served as the pinnacle of Imperial warship design. Spanning an incredible 19,000 meters in length, the vessel dwarfed nearly all other capital ships in the known galaxy. Its wedge-shaped profile, a scaled-up evolution of the Imperial-class Star Destroyer, allowed it to concentrate the overwhelming majority of its firepower, sensor arrays, and defensive shielding toward the front, making it a formidable opponent in head-on engagements. The design philosophy behind its construction prioritized durability, strategic dominance, and total battlefield control, turning the ship into a self-sustaining fortress capable of commanding entire fleets and leading planetary assaults. The hull of the Executor was crafted from titanium-reinforced alasteel, a material engineered for superior resilience against kinetic and directed energy attacks. The plating was multi-layered, integrating impact-dampening structures that distributed force across multiple sections of the superstructure, ensuring that even direct hits from high-yield munitions would not compromise its integrity. The sheer scale of the ship necessitated a segmented internal framework, allowing damage to be isolated to specific areas without endangering the entirety of the vessel. Additionally, the hull was coated with radiation-absorbing materials, minimizing its sensor signature against passive scans and protecting it from hazardous cosmic radiation found in deep space operations. The defensive systems aboard the Executor were among the most advanced in the Imperial Navy, incorporating multi-layered deflector shields that operated at different frequencies to provide comprehensive protection. These shields were managed through a network of shield generator domes, positioned in strategic locations across the ship, with the most vital systems housed within the command tower. The vessel also featured corpuscular shielding, a specialized defense designed to counteract ion-based weaponry, preventing electromagnetic disruptions that could disable critical systems. The Executor's shielding technology functioned dynamically, allowing energy to be rerouted to areas under immediate threat, ensuring continuous protection even in the most heated engagements. However, despite its formidable defenses, the bridge deflector shields were a notable vulnerability. Once compromised, the command tower became exposed, as seen during the Battle of Endor, where a single A-wing fighter exploited this weakness to catastrophic effect. Powering the Executor was an immense hypermatter annihilation reactor, a technological marvel that provided virtually limitless energy output. This reactor was the ship's beating heart, supplying power to its weapons, propulsion systems, shields, and onboard facilities with unparalleled efficiency. The energy distribution system was meticulously engineered, allowing for real-time power rerouting based on operational priorities. During combat scenarios, power could be diverted to boost weapon systems for maximum offensive output, reinforce shielding against incoming fire, or maintain the ship's ability to make emergency hyperspace jumps. To prevent overheating, the vessel incorporated a sophisticated heat dissipation system, using a network of thermal venting arrays distributed across the hull. These vents expelled excess heat generated by the reactor, ensuring that the ship's systems remained within optimal operational parameters even during prolonged engagements. In critical situations, thermal purge protocols could be activated, shutting down non-essential systems to prioritize reactor cooling and prevent catastrophic failures. Housing a crew complement exceeding 280,000 personnel. The Executor was more than just a warship. It was a fully functional city in space. The vessel was outfitted with state-of-the-art life support systems, ensuring breathable atmospheric conditions, efficient climate regulation, and waste recycling to sustain prolonged deployments without external resupply. The crew quarters were stratified by rank and function, reflecting the rigid hierarchy of the Imperial military. High-ranking officers and command personnel were assigned spacious private living spaces, often equipped with direct access to command and communication systems, allowing them to oversee operations without leaving their quarters. Mid-ranking officers and engineers resided in shared accommodations, complete with communal areas, while enlisted personnel were housed in densely packed dormitories, maximizing space efficiency. Given the Executor's importance within the Imperial fleet, sections of the ship were specifically designated for elite personnel, including Darth Vader himself, who maintained private chambers tailored to his needs. The ship's medical facilities were among the most advanced in the Imperial fleet, incorporating multiple medical bays, surgical units, and intensive care wards to handle both combat-related injuries and standard medical care for the vast crew. The primary medical center was located deep within the heavily fortified core of the ship, ensuring that critical personnel could receive treatment, even in the event of sustained enemy fire. Additionally, Darth Vader's personal medical suite, housed within the command tower, contained specialized life support systems and diagnostic equipment, allowing for immediate treatment should he require it. To maintain battlefield dominance, the Executor relied on an extensive array of long-range sensors and communication systems that provided unparalleled situational awareness. The bridge communication domes served as the primary relay hubs, coordinating signals between fleet elements and high command outposts. The vessel's hyperwave transceivers allowed for instantaneous communication across interstellar distances, ensuring seamless coordination with Imperial command centers and planetary garrisons. The long-range sensor arrays continuously scanned surrounding space for enemy movements, gravitational anomalies, and potential hyperspace disturbances, allowing the ship to anticipate threats and adjust tactical strategies accordingly. Additionally, the Executor employed advanced battlefield holographic projection systems, enabling real-time visualization of fleet engagements and planetary operations, allowing commanding officers to make precise tactical decisions. Navigation aboard the Executor was handled by high-precision inertial compensators and gravity well-mapping technologies, ensuring safe travel through complex star systems and dense asteroid fields. The ship's navigation control centers, located within the primary command structure, housed multiple backup systems, ensuring that even in the event of a catastrophic failure, the vessel could maintain its course and execute hyperspace jumps. The ship's logistical capabilities were immense, with cargo holds designed to store vast quantities of supplies, spare parts, and military equipment. These cargo bays contained modular storage compartments, allowing for rapid reconfiguration based on mission requirements, whether transporting additional starfighter squadrons, planetary assault vehicles, or personnel reinforcements. The Executor's interior lighting and structural design reflected the Empire's doctrine of efficiency and intimidation. The corridors, command centers, and hangar bays were illuminated by cold, sterile white lighting, reinforcing the ship's industrial aesthetic. Specialized areas, such as Darth Vader's personal chambers, were draped in darker lighting and illuminated by ominous red hues, designed to enhance the Sith Lord's imposing presence. The interior layout, despite the ship's immense size, was highly compartmentalized to ensure rapid response times, efficient personnel movement, and controlled damage containment in the event of breaches. Despite being one of the largest and most powerful warships ever constructed, the Executor was not invulnerable. Its immense size made it less maneuverable than smaller capital ships, requiring strategic positioning in battle to maximize its firepower, while minimizing exposure to enemy assaults on its weaker sections. Furthermore, its reliance on centralized command structures and layered shielding networks meant that well-coordinated attacks targeting specific vulnerabilities, such as the bridge deflector shields, could lead to catastrophic failures. In its time, the Executor-class Super Star Destroyer represented the zenith of Imperial military engineering, integrating advanced weaponry, shielding, navigation, and command capabilities into a single awe-inspiring warship. Every aspect of its design reinforced its role as the ultimate expression of Imperial dominance, ensuring that wherever it appeared, it served as a harbinger of conquest and destruction. The Executor-class Super Star Destroyer was not only a technological marvel, but also a testament to the Imperial regime's vast military infrastructure. With a crew of 280,784 officers, enlisted personnel, pilots, engineers, and specialists, the Executor was a living, breathing entity, a veritable floating city. Each individual aboard the ship was meticulously chosen, trained, and assigned specific roles that played a crucial part in the operation of the Empire's most powerful warship. At the very pinnacle of this hierarchy stood Darth Vader, the Dark Lord of the Sith, whose presence aboard the Executor was both a source of immense power and dread. His word was law, and the crew's loyalty to the Empire was maintained through fear and discipline. While the Supreme Commander of the Imperial fleet held formal command, Vader's dominance in all matters of strategy and operations made him the ultimate authority on board. Under his watch, officers knew that failure could result in swift and brutal punishment, and many careers were abruptly cut short by his infamous force choke. This environment of high tension ensured that the Executor's operations were carried out with brutal efficiency, though the cost of such high discipline was the morale of the crew, which fluctuated between fear-driven obedience and the constant threat of being replaced. Under the direction of Vader, the Executor's command structure was reinforced by a select group of Imperial officers, each entrusted with overseeing specific sections of the ship. These officers were the heart of the Executor's day-to-day operations, handling everything from navigation and engineering to the management of combat divisions and strategic commands. As an example of the ship's hierarchical rigor, Admiral Kendall Ozzel initially commanded the Executor during the Battle of Hoth, but was executed for his failure in tactical judgment. He was replaced by Captain Firmus Payet, who had proven his loyalty and ability in earlier assignments. Payet would remain the ship's final admiral, leading it during the climactic Battle of Endor, where its fate was sealed. The Executor's military might was not limited to its officers. It was sustained by an enormous contingent of Imperial Navy troopers, stormtroopers, and support staff. The stormtroopers, numbering around 38,000, were deployed for planetary assault and internal security. These troops served on the Executor as a means of keeping order in the vast, sprawling interior of the ship, where they ensured that no insurrection or sabotage could go unchecked. Their elite divisions included riot control stormtroopers who handled civil disturbances, jump troopers used for rapid response combat, and specialized stormtrooper commanders who led platoons in battle. The stormtroopers were often tasked with security duties in critical areas such as the hangar bays, the engine rooms, and near the sensitive locations such as Darth Vader's personal quarters or the Emperor's private throne room. The ship also boasted an array of elite personnel, many of whom were chosen for their exceptional abilities and backgrounds. Among them were General Maximilian Veers, known for his expertise in ground combat tactics and command of the AT-AT Walker divisions. On the other end of the spectrum, officers like Lieutenant Suba served as the Executor's chief of security, ensuring that all operations ran smoothly, with no interference or rebellion from within the ranks. Some key figures were drawn from outside traditional military circles, such as Sabe, a former Naboo royal handmaiden who had ascended to become an imperial commander stationed aboard the Executor. Figures like Ochi, an assassin, and Hurst Ramodi, another high-ranking officer, further added to the mix of expertise aboard this intimidating vessel. These individuals were part of the highly skilled personnel the Executor carried, individuals who were integral to both its smooth running and its campaigns of terror across the galaxy. It was staffed by humans. It was equally supported by droids, which performed a wide variety of functions, from maintenance and repair to security and administrative tasks. The ship's astromech droids were crucial for the functionality of the TI fighters and other small craft, while MSE-6 series repair droids were tasked with ensuring that the ship remained operational during long voyages and battles. The RA-7 protocol droids, commonly seen aboard Imperial ships, assisted with communication and administrative duties, handling the vast network of daily logistical tasks. Additionally, the Executor's KX series security droids were employed as guardians in high-security areas, constantly monitoring for signs of rebellion or sabotage. During a notorious droid uprising, B-1 series battle droids and B-2 series super battle droids were temporarily stationed aboard the Executor to be repaired, though their presence was short-lived after they were corrupted by the Scourge virus, leading to their destruction by Vader himself. Training aboard the Executor was one of the most intense experiences for any crew member. Imperial officers were trained at prestigious academies, such as those on Coruscant and Carida, where they received a mix of strategic and tactical instruction designed to maximize Imperial supremacy. The emphasis in these academies was on loyalty to the Empire, discipline, and efficiency, with all trainees expected to adopt a cold, calculating mindset suited to military life under the Empire's brutal regime. Officers of all ranks were taught to expect rapid promotions due to the high turnover rate, a fact reinforced by Vader's frequent purges of those deemed incompetent or traitorous. Crew morale, though essential to the functioning of such a large warship, was inevitably affected by the omnipresent danger of punishment, with many officers and enlisted personnel knowing that a single mistake could lead to their immediate execution. However, the sense of purpose and pride that came with serving aboard the Executor, especially among the Imperial Navy troopers and stormtroopers, meant that the crew often found ways to channel their fear into focused obedience. The constant discipline and training kept them performing at their best, ensuring that their service was marked by unwavering efficiency, despite the emotional and psychological strain. The crew's uniforms and equipment reflected the oppressive nature of life aboard the Executor. Imperial officers wore their standard olive green or black uniforms, with rank insignia identifying their department and hierarchy. Stormtroopers, clad in their distinctive white armor, were designed to be a symbol of the Empire's absolute control. The armor itself was not just for protection, it served as a psychological weapon, an impenetrable mask that allowed the wearer to embody the will of the Empire. TIE fighter pilots, meanwhile, wore pressurized flight suits, designed for long missions in the cold of space, complete with life support and communications equipment. In addition to human personnel, the Executor's operation was supported by a vast array of automated systems and technologically advanced droids. The sheer scale of the vessel necessitated autonomous functions to handle the most mundane tasks. Everything from ship repairs to cargo handling was handled with efficiency by these machines. However, even with all the advanced systems in place, there was still an emphasis on human oversight, as the Empire preferred to rely on its crew to make strategic decisions, leaving the technology to do the heavy lifting. At the heart of the Executor's operation were the command bridges and tactical rooms, where senior officers oversaw the ship's strategic operations during battle. The main bridge was located in the command tower, and it was here that high-ranking officers coordinated fleet movements, tactical decisions, and the Empire's response to rebel incursions. Additionally, there was a strategic command center, which housed holographic projection systems that allowed for real-time battle analysis. The Executor's advanced communication systems ensured that information flowed seamlessly across the ship, and it was through this network that orders were relayed and fleets were directed in battle. The ship's life support systems were designed to sustain the crew through extended deployments, ensuring that the personnel aboard the Executor could survive long voyages across the galaxy without external support. These systems were crucial to the Executor's capacity to operate independently, as it was designed to function for months or even years without requiring significant resupply from the Empire's central systems. In terms of command and control, the throne room, located in one of the highest levels of the ship, stood as a symbol of the Empire's power. This heavily protected chamber was equipped with its own life support and airlock systems, independent of the rest of the ship, and was used by Emperor Palpatine himself for matters of Imperial governance, at least once during the tenure of the Executor. Its fortress-like design made it a virtually impenetrable location on the ship, ensuring that no one could approach the Emperor without facing the full might of Imperial security. Despite the immense crew and complex systems, the Executor's tragic end during the Battle of Endor came about as a result of a single well-timed strike from a rebel A-Wing pilot. With the bridge deflector shields down, an A-Wing fighter crashed directly into the command tower, leading to the Executor's fiery descent into the Death Star's surface. The loss of over 300,000 crew members, along with the destruction of the flagship of the Imperial Navy, marked the collapse of Imperial authority and signaled a turning point in the galactic struggle between the Empire and the Rebel Alliance. The Executor-class Super Star Destroyer was a culmination of extensive Imperial military design, research, and development. Its creation was a massive undertaking, reflecting the Empire's commitment to dominance and the immense resources at its disposal. A product of the Empire's best shipyards, the Executor-class was primarily constructed at the Fondor shipyards and Kuat drive yards, two of the most renowned and technologically advanced shipyards in the galaxy. These facilities had been responsible for producing some of the most iconic vessels of the Imperial fleet, and the Executor-class represented the pinnacle of their expertise. The design process for the Executor-class began with the vision of the Empire's need for a weapon that would dwarf any ship previously constructed. Its purpose was clear: to serve as both a flag-bearer for the Imperial Navy and a symbol of absolute power. The project was spearheaded by the Imperial Navy's Star Dreadnought Division, which oversaw the design and implementation of the massive vessel. The design process was a fusion of cutting-edge Imperial technology with the streamlined efficiency required for such a monumental project. One of the most striking aspects of the Executor-class was its modular production. This method of construction allowed for the vessel's massive components to be built separately in different facilities across the galaxy, then transported to the primary assembly locations, where they would be joined together into the final product. This technique allowed for faster construction times and greater logistical flexibility, particularly for a ship of such vast proportions. The modular nature of the construction also allowed for easier maintenance and repairs, as different sections of the ship could be worked on independently of each other. The construction of the Executor class was no small feat. It took over a decade for the initial designs to be fully realized, with construction crews working around the clock to meet the demanding specifications set forth by the Imperial Navy. Each section of the ship, from the immense engines to the heavily reinforced hull, required a level of precision and skill that was unmatched in the galaxy. The sheer scale of the ship necessitated the use of advanced construction droids, heavy-duty cranes, and the best human workers the Empire could assemble. These workers, many of whom were conscripted into service, worked tirelessly to ensure that each component of the ship met the stringent standards set by the Navy. In terms of logistics, the project was a gargantuan undertaking. The sheer volume of materials required for the construction of the Executor class was staggering. Titanium-reinforced steel, a metal known for its strength and durability, was used extensively in the ship's hull to provide maximum protection against enemy fire. Specialized materials were used for the ship's shielding and weaponry components, ensuring that the vessel would be able to withstand even the most devastating attacks. In addition to the materials, there were significant challenges associated with the transportation of parts from various systems. Massive freighters were required to carry sections of the ship from different parts of the galaxy, often traveling through dangerous, contested regions to reach their destination. The Empire's vast logistical network, which included dedicated supply fleets and heavily guarded convoys, ensured that the Executor class received the parts and components it needed to continue its construction. The price of the Executor class was one of the most expensive investments ever made by the Galactic Empire. At an estimated cost of 325 billion credits, it was a vessel that represented both the Empire's wealth and its priorities. The cost of building such a ship could have funded several smaller fleets of warships or supported numerous other Imperial projects, but the Empire spared no expense in its quest to create a weapon of overwhelming power. The price tag reflected the ship's size, complexity, and the immense resources needed to assemble and maintain it. Despite the staggering cost, the Executor class was seen as a necessary expenditure for the Empire. Darth Vader and the Emperor saw it as an investment in their long-term dominance over the galaxy. The Executor served not only as a weapon of war, but also as a psychological tool, instilling fear and awe in all who encountered it. The production and development of the Executor class was not just the work of one company or facility. It was a collaboration between two of the galaxy's largest shipyards, the Fondor shipyards and Quat drive yards, which were both owned by different factions within the Empire. Fondor shipyards, a major Imperial construction facility, was responsible for assembling the larger sections of the ship, particularly its engines and core systems. Quat drive yards, known for its exceptional ability to construct warships, played a key role in manufacturing the massive weaponry, shields, and armor that would give the Executor class its lethal capabilities. Once constructed, the Executor class was assigned to the Death Squadron, one of the most formidable fleets in the Imperial Navy. The Death Squadron was led by Darth Vader himself and was designed to be a mobile base of operations for the Emperor's forces. The Executor class acted as the squadron's flagship, a symbol of the Empire's military might. Its presence alone was enough to quell any resistance, and its sheer firepower made it an almost insurmountable force in the galaxy. As one of the most technologically advanced ships of its time, the Executor-class Super Star Destroyer became the benchmark for future Imperial warships. It was the epitome of the Empire's military doctrine, blending overwhelming firepower with cutting-edge technology and a terrifying psychological presence. Though its construction was a monumental task, the ship's eventual loss at the Battle of Endor was a symbolic end to the Empire's reign of terror and a turning point in the Galactic Civil War. The development, design, and construction of the Executor class were a testament to the Empire's ambition and technological prowess. It was an engineering marvel that required the full might of the Empire's industrial resources, and it would forever be remembered as one of the most feared and iconic warships in galactic history. the Executor-class Star Dreadnought, a monumental creation by Quat Drive Yards, was the crowning achievement of an ambitious project spearheaded by the dark and enigmatic Sith Lord Darth Vader. This colossal warship, the first of its kind, was destined to redefine the very concept of power in the galaxy. Darth Vader, ever driven by his quest to cement Imperial dominance, had pushed for a flagship that would eclipse all others, including the Annihilator, which had previously served as the pride of the Imperial fleet under Supreme Commander Grand General Cassio Tog. The Executor was designed not just as a warship, but as a symbol, an embodiment of the Empire's overwhelming might. Its size and firepower were unmatched, and it was intended to stand as the greatest ship ever to serve in the Imperial Navy. By the time the galactic conflict of the Shu-Torun War reached its conclusion, the Executor was entering the final stages of its construction in the prestigious orbital shipyards of Quat, a process that would see this terrifying superweapon emerge from the shadows to take its place among the stars as the ultimate expression of Imperial power. With its launch, the Executor would assume its rightful position as the flagship of the Imperial fleet, forever altering the balance of galactic warfare. During the final stages of the Executor's construction, an act of treachery nearly upended the Empire's plans. The rogue scientist Dr. Silo, a cybernetically enhanced rival handpicked by the Emperor years prior as a potential replacement for Darth Vader, launched a daring coup to seize control of the unfinished dreadnought. With its unparalleled size and devastating firepower, the Executor in Silo's hands would have been a deadly weapon against the Emperor himself. However, the Sith Lord would not tolerate such insolence. With ruthless efficiency, Vader crushed Silo's rebellion, proving once again that no challenger, no matter how cunning or technologically advanced, could stand against the true power of the dark side. As a reward for his victory, Emperor Palpatine granted Vader full command of the Executor and the fleet that would serve as its vanguard. This decision sidelined Supreme Commander Grand General Cassio Tog, who had once been among the most powerful figures in the Imperial hierarchy. Seeing the writing on the wall, Tog attempted to reason with Vader, hoping to salvage his authority. But the Dark Lord was unmoved. Without hesitation, he raised a gloved hand and, with a mere thought, crushed the life out of the Grand General with a brutal application of the Force. Turning to Admiral Kendall Ozzel, Vader inquired about the timeline for the Executor's launch. Ozzel, rattled by what he had just witnessed, cautiously estimated that the ship would be ready in about a month, due to the damages sustained during Silo's insurrection. But Vader would not wait. He gave the Admiral only 2 weeks. When Ozzel began to protest, his words caught in his throat as Vader ominously remarked that he was beginning to sound like the late Grand General. One glance at Taggi's lifeless corpse was all it took. Ozzel swiftly assured his new commander that the Executor would be ready on time. As the meeting concluded, Vader strode to the viewport of his newly acquired dreadnought, staring into the vast abyss of space. Yet, for a fleeting moment, his mind reached beyond the present. Using the Force, he briefly connected with the one person who still haunted his thoughts: his son, Luke Skywalker. With its towering, dagger-like silhouette, the Executor became the undisputed centerpiece of Death Squadron, the elite fleet of Imperial capital ships personally assigned to Darth Vader. This fearsome armada, handpicked to serve the Dark Lord, was tasked with enforcing his iron will across the stars. At the helm of the squadron remained Admiral Kendall Ozzel, who continued to command the dreadnought despite Vader's growing irritation with his incompetence. The Executor was more than just a warship. It was a statement of Imperial supremacy, replacing the Devastator as Vader's personal flagship and heralding a new era of relentless military pursuit. Manning such a vessel required only the best. The stormtroopers aboard the Executor were not ordinary soldiers but an elite force, selected from the most exceptional graduates of the Imperial Academy. These were men who had proven themselves through unwavering discipline and combat excellence, making them worthy of serving aboard the most powerful warship in the galaxy. The Executor's mission quickly took on even greater significance following the catastrophic Battle of Yavin, where the Rebel Alliance achieved the unthinkable, destroying the Death Star. This act of defiance enraged the Emperor and drove Vader into an obsessive hunt for the hidden Rebel base. The Executor and its fleet were assigned to track down and exterminate the rebels, ensuring that such an insult to the Empire would never happen again. As Vader settled into his new command, the Executor was outfitted with special modifications tailored to its master's unique needs. Among these was a meditation chamber, a dark and ominous sanctum that mirrored the one in his Mustafar stronghold. Within this sealed chamber, far from the prying eyes of his subordinates, Vader could remove his mask and armor, sustain himself without the aid of his respirator, and delve deeper into the dark side of the Force. Here he could meditate on his endless thirst for vengeance, his pursuit of power, and, on rare occasions, the flickering remnants of a past he could never truly erase. After the cunning Queen trios made contact with Darth Vader, revealing the location of the Alliance fleet hidden at the Makota space docks, the Executor, along with the entirety of Death Squadron, immediately set course for the Rebel stronghold. As the massive warships dropped out of hyperspace, the full might of the Empire loomed over the Makota system. Vader, ever the master strategist, commanded the attack from the bridge of his flagship. His orders were clear and merciless: annihilate the nearest Rebel cruiser, Yavin's Hope, without hesitation. The firepower of the Executor and its fleet unleashed a devastating barrage, leaving the Rebel forces in disarray. However, the battle took an unexpected turn when the Millennium Falcon, piloted by the infamous smuggler Han Solo, appeared on the scene. Solo, ever the opportunist, attempted to exploit a Rebel proximity signal in a daring effort to open the locked fighter bay doors of the Republic, a key target for the Imperial forces. Infuriated by the Rebels' persistence, Vader took matters into his own hands. Leaving the Executor behind, he entered his advanced TIE fighter, a sleek and deadly vessel, and pursued Solo personally, determined to prevent the smuggler from causing any further disruption. While Vader engaged in this personal pursuit, Admiral Ozzel remained aboard the Executor, overseeing the destruction of several more Rebel cruisers. Ozzel's command was relentless. Each strike from the Imperial fleet was intended to break the resolve of the Alliance. Despite this overwhelming force, the tide of the battle began to shift when Luke Skywalker led a squadron of X-Wings into the fray, forming the iconic Rogue Squadron. With Skywalker's presence, the Rebels began to mount a formidable resistance, complicating the Empire's efforts and adding another layer of chaos to the already tense battle. Vader's pursuit of Solo was not without consequence. His attempt to prevent the Millennium Falcon from breaching the Republic's bay doors failed, and the Rebel forces had gained a foothold. The outcome of this battle remained uncertain, as the clash between the might of the Empire and the daring spirit of the rebellion continued to rage across the stars. As the battle raged on, the rebels aboard Makota were not content to simply weather the storm. They were working tirelessly to regain control of their fleet. Amidst their desperate search through the files of Queen trios, Leia Organa made a critical discovery. The override code necessary to reactivate the fleet was hidden aboard the Executor, the very flagship of Darth Vader. With this knowledge in hand, the princess knew that a daring raid on the Imperial flagship was their only hope of turning the tide in their favor. In a bold move, Organa decided to use the Shu Torun Monarch's transponder codes to pose as Queen Trios herself, gaining access to the heart of the Empire's war machine. Accompanied by a team of General David Stravin's most trusted forces, Organa managed to infiltrate the Executor under the guise of the Queen. Their landing was granted, and they stealthily made their way out of the ship's docking bay. In a swift and brutal act of necessity, they eliminated the unsuspecting Imperial officer sent to greet them, ensuring their cover remained intact. As the rebels made their way through the flagship, General Draven remained alert, coordinating their movements. But his attention was soon drawn to a new threat. A familiar shape in the sky, Vader's TIE. Advanced was heading straight toward them. The unmistakable silhouette of the Dark Lord's personal ship sent a chill down Draven's spine, and he quickly alerted Organa to the danger. They had no choice but to abandon their mission and make their escape. But their narrow window of safety was short-lived. As the rebels scrambled to flee, the unmistakable sound of Vader's TIE fighter touching down echoed through the docking bay. The Dark Lord emerged from his vessel, his ominous presence filling the air as he activated his red-bladed lightsaber. Aware of the rebels' presence, he prepared to deal with them swiftly and decisively. His mastery of the Force made him an overwhelming opponent, and the rebels knew that they were running out of time. The stakes were higher than ever as the battle for the fleet and the galaxy reached a dangerous tipping point. The rebels' mission aboard the Executor had come to a crucial turning point. With the override codes now in their possession, they made their way to a hangar where a lone TIE fighter was docked, an unlikely but necessary means of escape. After a tense discussion, the team reached a decision. Leia Organa, their most valuable asset and leader, would pilot the TIE fighter back to Dodonna's flagship, ensuring that the codes were delivered and their fleet could regain control. Meanwhile, General David Straven would lead a rearguard action, buying the rebels the time they needed to escape the clutches of Darth Vader. As the plan unfolded, Leia made her way to the TIE fighter and took off, heading for safety as the rest of the rebel team prepared to hold their ground. In a brutal and heroic standoff, Straven and his rearguard faced off against the Dark Lord and his forces, fully aware that their chances of survival were slim. Their task was not to win, but to delay Vader long enough to allow the princess to escape the Imperial grip. Their bravery was not in vain. Leia managed to make it back to the Republic's flagship and deliver the vital override codes, ensuring that the fleet would regain power and the momentum in the battle. However, the cost of their success was steep. General Draven and the entire rearguard made the ultimate sacrifice. As Vader descended upon them with terrifying precision, they fought valiantly but were ultimately cut down by the Dark Lord's ruthless fury. One by one, the rebels fell before his lightsaber, their courage no match for his overwhelming power. But despite their deaths, their mission had succeeded. The Republic regained its strength, and with the fleet now operational, they managed to flee the battle, their spirits lifted by the knowledge that the fight was far from over. The rebels had escaped, but the war would continue, with both sides knowing that this battle was only the beginning of a larger struggle. As the final remnants of the rebel fleet were systematically destroyed by the might of the Executor, Darth Vader and Admiral Ozzel stood on the bridge, watching the devastation unfold. The remaining rebel ships were helpless in the face of the overwhelming Imperial firepower, their fates sealed as they were wiped out one by one. But just as the Empire seemed poised to completely crush the rebellion, a new threat emerged from the chaos. Dodonna's flagship, the Republic, which had somehow survived the onslaught, returned to the fray. In a bold act of defiance, the Republic opened fire on the Executor, its blast striking the mighty flagship with surprising force. This sudden assault caught the Imperials off guard, forcing them to divert their attention to the attacking ship. Vader and Ozzel were momentarily distracted, and in that brief moment, the rebel forces capitalized on the opportunity. The attack on the Executor served as a deliberate distraction, giving Han Solo and Leia Organa the opening they needed to execute their plan. While the Imperials focused on the Republic, Han and Leia piloted transports to the remaining rebel cruisers, successfully delivering the override codes that would allow the ships to escape the clutches of the Empire. With the codes in hand, the cruisers powered up their engines and broke free from the Imperial blockade, leaving the Executor behind in the wake of the battle. However, the Republic, though courageous in its final stand, was too badly damaged to escape. Its hull was riddled with blast marks, its systems barely functioning. Unable to outrun the Imperial forces, the ship became an easy target for the relentless assault from the Executor and its fleet. Despite the rebels' best efforts, the Republic was eventually finished off, its destruction marking a tragic but inevitable end. As the surviving rebel ships escaped into the vastness of space, their victory was bittersweet. The battle had cost them dearly, but their fight was not over. With the override codes delivered and the fleet in motion, the rebellion had a chance to regroup and continue their war against the Empire, though the Executor and its formidable crew would undoubtedly hunt them down with relentless persistence. The conflict, it seemed, was far from over. In 3 ABY, the Empire's relentless hunt for the Rebel Alliance led to a pivotal moment in the galactic conflict. An Imperial probe droid, sent out into the unknown reaches of space, made a critical discovery: the Rebel hideout on the frozen planet of Hoth, known as Echo Base. The rebels had established their new base of operations in the remote and inhospitable region, hoping to remain hidden from the Empire's grasp. However, the droid's transmission revealed their location, setting the stage for a devastating Imperial response. At the time, the Executor and its supporting ships were stationed in the Juris sector, far from the Hoth system. When Darth Vader received word of the probe droid's success, he immediately sensed the gravity of the situation. Without hesitation, he ordered Admiral Ozzel to move the Imperial fleet toward the Hoth system to strike at the rebels. However, Ozzel, as he often did, disagreed with Vader's directive. Underestimating the situation, Ozzel decided to bring the fleet out of hyperspace too close to the system, a tactical error that would have dire consequences. This miscalculation allowed the rebels to detect the Imperial approach in time. Echo Base quickly raised its defensive shields, preventing the Empire from initiating an orbital bombardment. As a result, the Imperial fleet was forced to engage in a ground assault, sending stormtroopers and AT-AT walkers to the surface of Hoth to try and break through the rebel defenses. The battle that ensued was brutal, but the delay caused by Ozzel's blunder would cost him dearly. Vader, ever unforgiving of failure, did not tolerate such mistakes. In a swift and merciless act, he summoned Admiral Ozzel to the bridge of the Executor. With a cold, calculating gesture, Vader used the Force to strangle Ozzel to death, his incompetence now paid for in the most final of ways. In Ozzel's place, Captain Firmus Piet was promoted to Admiral and assumed command of the fleet. Piet, though loyal and capable, now stood in the shadow of the Dark Lord, aware that his own survival depended on his ability to avoid the same mistakes that had cost his predecessor his life. This pivotal moment marked a turning point in the Empire's pursuit of the rebels. As the battle on Hoth raged on, the stakes were higher than ever, and the Executor, now under Piet's command, would continue its pursuit, leaving the Rebel Alliance no place to hide. As the Empire relentlessly pursued the fleeing Rebel Alliance forces from the icy surface of Hoth, the Executor, now under the command of Admiral Piet, joined the chase, accompanied by several Imperial-class Star Destroyers. The Rebels' most critical asset, the Millennium Falcon, had managed to escape into the treacherous depths of the Hoth asteroid field, hoping to lose their Imperial pursuers among the jagged rocks and debris. Despite the asteroid belt's dangerous environment, the Executor and its fleet pressed forward, determined to capture or destroy the Falcon. The pursuit was tense and fraught with peril, as both sides maneuvered through the field, avoiding collisions while engaging in a high-stakes cat-and-mouse game. But Vader, ever the strategic mastermind, was not merely focused on the rebels' escape. He had larger plans at play. Realizing that the chase would only take them so far, and aware that the field's hazards could interfere with his greater goals, Lord Vader issued an order to Piet to abandon the pursuit. The Executor was to clear the asteroid field, allowing Vader to focus on something far more pressing. The Dark Lord had been planning a direct communication with Emperor Palpatine, and the risks of conducting such a conversation amidst the chaos of the chase were too great. He needed a clearer channel to discuss the rebels and the ultimate goal that had been occupying his thoughts: luring out his son, Luke Skywalker. With the pursuit called off, the Executor shifted course toward the gas giant Bespin, a location where Vader intended to ensnare the Millennium Falcon and its occupants. The rebel fugitives, now making their way to the floating city of Cloud City, were unaware of the trap that awaited them. The Falcon was heading straight into Vader's trap, and the Dark Lord was prepared to use it as bait to draw out his son. This would be a defining moment in the conflict. Vader's mind was focused not just on the capture of the rebels, but on his son, Luke Skywalker, the last remaining connection to the man he once was, Anakin Skywalker. With the Executor en route to Bespin, the trap was set, and the Empire's grand scheme to capture the rebel fleet, and most importantly, Skywalker, was moving into its next phase. After Lord Vader secured Han Solo, frozen in carbonite, from the Crimson Dawn auction on the distant planet of Jakara, he had successfully completed the first part of his elaborate plan to capture the rebels. But the hunt for Luke Skywalker was far from over. With Solo in his possession, Vader sought to use the carbonite-encased smuggler as bait, drawing Luke into a deadly trap. The confrontation would take place in the cold void of space, where the Empire's might would clash with the rebellious spirit of the rebels. At the same time, General Hurst Ramodi's shuttle, carrying the precious cargo of the carbonite-encased Solo, was immobilized during its transport to the Executor. With the ship stalled in the airless vacuum, the bounty hunters who had been tracking the carbonite prize swiftly moved in. Baylert Valance, the cyborg bounty hunter, and Boba Fett, the infamous Mandalorian aboard the slave Yai, both had their eyes on Solo. However, they were not the only ones seeking to take possession of the frozen smuggler. As the bounty hunters closed in, Lando Calrissian, Leia Organa, and the rest of the crew of the Millennium Falcon were on their own mission, desperate to rescue Solo and escape the Empire's clutches. The tension reached a fever pitch as these factions converged, each with their own interests in the frozen smuggler. The slave Eye and the Falcon engaged in a chaotic and perilous dogfight, their weapons blazing across the stars. Meanwhile, far from the battle, the Hutt clan, ever opportunistic, had been beckoned by Crimson Dawn to launch an attack on the Executor, the Empire's formidable flagship. This move was a bold and overt challenge to Lord Vader's authority, an affront that the Dark Lord could not ignore. However, the Hutts quickly learned that betraying the Empire would be a fatal decision. As the space battle raged, Boba Fett ultimately succeeded in retrieving Solo from the chaos, leaving Baylert Valance for dead after a brutal confrontation. Fett's reputation as the best bounty hunter in the galaxy remained intact, but the true reckoning was yet to come. Back aboard the Executor, Vader turned his wrath upon the Hutts for their treacherous actions. He personally oversaw the slaughter of Boku, the leader of the Hutt clan, and his associates. With cold precision, Vader eliminated the Hutt criminals who had dared to challenge the Empire's might, sending a clear message to all who would defy him. The aftermath of the violent confrontation left Vader with Han Solo secured and the Hutts wiped out, but the hunt for Luke Skywalker was far from over. With Solo now a prisoner and the Empire's enemies temporarily silenced, Vader's focus shifted back to his son. The trap was set, and the final confrontation was approaching, with the fate of the galaxy hanging in the balance. In 4 ABY, the Executor, still commanded by Admiral Piet, stood as the flagship of a formidable Imperial fleet that had assembled around the remote forest moon of Endor. It was here, in the shadow of the moon's dense forests, that the Empire's new superweapon, the second Death Star, was under construction. The Executor's primary role was to stand guard over Endor, ensuring that no unauthorized ships could approach the Death Star's construction site. As the fleet's command center, the Executor also took charge of all clearance requests from starships entering the system, maintaining tight control over all movement. One such ship, a Lambda-class T-4, a shuttle called Tydirium, arrived in the system and requested clearance. The shuttle's code was transmitted, and at first glance it appeared to be a valid but older code, nothing that immediately raised suspicion. As Admiral Piet was preparing to grant the shuttle permission to pass, Lord Vader intervened. Sensing that something was off, he requested more information about the shuttle's destination. Something in the Force warned him that there was more to this ship than met the eye. Vader's intuition was correct. The Tydirium had been stolen by the Rebel Alliance. Its true mission was far from ordinary. It was transporting a strike team to the surface of Endor, and among its members was none other than Luke Skywalker, the son of Vader himself. The shuttle's presence in the system was no coincidence. It was part of a daring rebel operation aimed at destroying the Death Star and ultimately bringing down the Empire. While Admiral Piet was willing to hold the shuttle for further inspection, Vader made the decision to let it pass. His obsession with his son clouded his judgment, and he decided to deal with the matter personally. He would follow the shuttle's movements, intending to confront Luke and eliminate the rebel threat once and for all. The implications of this decision would prove catastrophic for both the Empire and the Rebel Alliance, as the fate of the second Death Star and the galaxy would soon be determined on the forest moon of Endor. The Executor, with Vader at the helm, was poised for the final confrontation, setting the stage for the dramatic events that would unfold on the surface of Endor. As the Rebel fleet arrived in the system, its mission was clear: destroy the second Death Star, still in its incomplete state, before it could fully come online. This sparked the beginning of the Battle of Endor, a decisive conflict that would shape the future of the galaxy. The Executor, under the command of Admiral Piet, took its position at the heart of the Imperial fleet, ready to engage the rebels and prevent their escape from the system. The Empire's strategy was simple: crush the rebel forces and ensure the Death Star's defenses remained intact. However, Emperor Palpatine had a more insidious plan in mind. Rather than order an immediate attack on the rebel ships, the Emperor wanted to make a statement. He sought to demonstrate the destructive power of the Death Star's super laser to the rebels and the galaxy at large, making them fully aware of the might of the Empire. Admiral Piet, though eager to crush the rebel fleet, received orders to hold back the Empire's forces and wait for the Emperor's grand display. The Executor and the surrounding fleet stood ready, keeping the rebel ships pinned in position, ensuring they could neither escape nor mount an effective defense. The trap was closing, and the rebels were now cornered. As the rebel fleet tried to regroup and engage, Palpatine instructed his forces to wait until the Death Star could fire its super laser. The Emperor, ever the manipulator, intended to break the rebel resolve by destroying their capital ships one by one, using the devastating weapon of the Death Star to shatter their morale and send a clear message that defiance against the Empire was futile. With the Imperial fleet in place, Admiral Piet followed his orders, reluctant to engage the rebels directly while waiting for the Emperor's moment of triumph. The tension was palpable as the battle raged on, and the rebel forces struggled to make headway against the overwhelming might of the Empire. The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance as the Executor, the symbol of Imperial might, watched over the doomed rebels, awaiting the Emperor's demonstration of power. As the rebel fleet struggled to escape the overwhelming firepower of the Death Star, they found themselves with little choice but to engage the Imperial forces head-on. Admiral Piet and the Executor were at the center of the confrontation, the flagship of the Empire holding firm against the rebel onslaught. However, the rebels, desperate to buy time for their ground assault team, had a plan to take down the Death Star's shield generator, the key to penetrating the superweapon's defenses. With Admiral Jial Akbar, the Alliance Fleet Supreme Commander, leading the charge, the rebel warships coordinated a concentrated barrage against the Executor, hoping to draw fire away from the ground forces. The Executor's formidable defenses were tested as the rebel ships launched wave after wave of attacks. Yet the Imperial Star Destroyer was a fortress, its shields holding strong against the onslaught. As the rebel assault on the ground progressed, the shield generator protecting the Death Star was destroyed, and the rebel fighters gained a chance to penetrate the superstructure of the massive weapon. With the stakes higher than ever, Akbar made the decision to increase the pressure on the Executor, focusing all available firepower on the massive Super Star Destroyer to keep it distracted and prevent it from intervening in the battle. In response, Piet quickly ordered his forward batteries to intensify their firepower, trying to push back the rebel forces and protect the Executor from any threat that might take advantage of the window of opportunity. However, just as the Executor was bracing for the incoming barrage, a pair of RZ-1 A-Wing interceptors made a bold attack on the Executor's bridge deflector shields, strafing them with precision and successfully bringing down the shields. With the deflector shields now down, the Executor was vulnerable, and the rebel forces seized the chance to strike. The momentum shifted, and the Empire's flagship, long the symbol of Imperial strength, was suddenly in peril. Admiral Piet, knowing the gravity of the situation, ordered everything to hold, giving his crew their final chance to stop the rebels from breaking through. Yet, despite his orders, the Executor's bridge was exposed, and the rebel fleet had delivered a critical blow, setting the stage for the final assault on the Death Star and the ultimate showdown between the forces of good and evil. With the Executor now at the center of the battle, its fate would determine not only the outcome of the Battle of Endor, but the balance of power in the entire Outer Rim. Vice Admiral Ray Sloan, ever the strategist, recognized the critical role the Executor played in the conflict. Determined to defend it at all costs, she maneuvered her ship, the Vigilance, into a flanking position to provide additional support. However, the tides of battle were shifting, and the rebels were pushing their advantage with everything they had. In the midst of the chaos, Rebel Green leader Arval Kreenid, piloting a severely damaged A-Wing starfighter, found himself facing the looming might of the Executor. His ship had taken heavy fire from the Executor's weapons, leaving it crippled and barely operational. Despite the overwhelming odds, Crynid displayed incredible skill and determination. With his A-wing on the verge of collapse, he managed to keep enough control of his vessel to make a desperate, suicidal maneuver. He sent his stricken starfighter directly toward the Executor's unshielded bridge. As Admiral Piet witnessed the incoming threat, he frantically ordered the forward batteries to intensify their firepower in a desperate bid to stop the rebel assault. But it was too late. Commander Garrett realized with grim certainty that the A-wing was on a collision course with the Executor's command tower, and nothing could stop it in time. The rebel fighter slammed into the bridge with devastating force, triggering a massive explosion that engulfed the Executor's command center in a fireball of destruction. The Executor, the symbol of Imperial dominance, began to list to port as the bridge was consumed in flames. The ship, mortally wounded, veered toward the surface of the Death Star, its once imposing silhouette now a drifting hulk. The impact with the Death Star's surface was catastrophic, causing the Executor to explode in a final, glorious burst of flames and debris. The massive ship, once the pride of the Empire, was no more. The loss of the Executor was a critical blow to the Empire's military might, signaling the beginning of the end for Palpatine's reign. With the flagship of the Imperial fleet destroyed, the balance of power in the Outer Rim shifted irreparably, and the rebels gained the upper hand in the battle. The Death Star was now vulnerable, and the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. The destruction of the Executor marked a catastrophic turning point for the Imperial fleet during the Battle of Endor. With the massive Super Star Destroyer obliterated, not only was the Empire's flagship lost, but also the lives of over 300,000 personnel, including many of the best and most capable officers who served under Admiral Piet and other high-ranking Imperial commanders. These were individuals who had spent years mastering the complexities of fleet strategy and battle tactics, and their deaths crippled the Empire's leadership and coordination. Without the Executor at the helm, the Imperial fleet lost its focal point for command and control. The chain of command was fractured, and the remaining Imperial officers were left scrambling to maintain any semblance of order amidst the chaos. The rebel forces, emboldened by this decisive blow, pushed forward with greater determination. The Death Star, vulnerable without its protective shield, was now fully exposed to attack. The loss of the Executor signified the end of any serious hope the Empire had of winning the battle. With the Empire's fleet disorganized and their morale shattered, the Rebel Alliance seized the opportunity to deal a final, crushing blow to the forces of Emperor Palpatine. The Battle of Endor resulted in a resounding defeat for the Galactic Empire, and the destruction of the Executor would be remembered as the moment when the tide of war turned decisively in favor of the rebellion. This defeat, coupled with the eventual destruction of the second Death Star, sealed the fate of the Empire. The rebels had won a monumental victory, and the balance of power in the galaxy had irrevocably shifted. With the Empire in disarray and Palpatine's grip on power broken, the path was now open for the Rebel Alliance to rise and pave the way for the restoration of peace and freedom across the galaxy.